Hello, my friends. This is Brent, the productivity coach. And in this video, we are going to talk about motivation. I'm going to teach you how to discover sustainable, bottomless motivation in yourself, more motivation than you'll ever need, all the motivation you'll need to accomplish your goals, your life goals on a short-term and a long-term basis. Now, I know I have somewhat of a penchant for making big, bold claims at the beginning of these videos. And it doesn't change the fact that I believe what I'm telling you. For what I've discovered, what I'm about to share with you, this has created all the motivation I've ever needed to attain my goals, and as I continue to attain my goals. And these are insights that have been very hard won, and really the most difficult part is articulating them, just figuring out how to speak them, how to make sense out of them, how to refine them into a tool that I can share with other people. And it's not just to say that if I share this with you and when I'm done talking to you, you're just gonna, you'll suddenly wake up the next day with all the motivation you'll ever need, but it's more like this is the key, this is the rubric to having all of the motivation that you need. Such that if you listen to this and engage with it, because you'll have to actually pay attention and engage and work with the concepts that I share with you here and do some of these exercises. But if you do, if you find yourself in a position where you're constantly struggling with consistency and focus and habits, and you're just on again and off again and constantly coming back to square one, and you're just like, you feel like you're constantly disappointing yourself and you're not able to stick with anything you start, like this kind of thing, then this will be the ticket out for you. And so this is worthwhile, I think, for you to grapple with. And not only that, but these concepts are proven. I've shared them with my paying clients who spend time with me and work with me, and I've transmitted this to them and they used it and it works. And more recently, my group forums as well. So it's not just me up in my head in my fantasy land. This is stuff that actually works. And then finally, I guess this is turning into a bit of a preamble. What makes this effective is that it's not some big fancy scheme with a lot of bells and whistles. My big focus lately is on simplicity and dissolving as much complication as I can and keeping everything very simple, very grounded, not adding big fancy elements to it, and just letting this simplicity of these things work for themselves, explain themselves. So this is good because it allows these concepts to be powerful, but what we do run the risk of is having these concepts seem so simple that we'll go, oh yeah, I know that already, and we'll want to just like skip right by them. And so that's something to watch out for. So I've planned this out somewhat. This will be somewhat of a freewheeling endeavor. I kind of have like a target that I want to aim at, and I'm just going to draw the quickest line that I possibly can to get to the point, because I know that sometimes I can be long-winded in these videos. But I want you to know that I respect your time, and I'm not just talking just to talk, that I really want to get you to the next level. It's really important to me, man. I really want to get you to the next level. So here's a good place to start. Let's discuss your actualization. The reason why we're going to want to discuss this is because everything that we're doing here in terms of giving you the motivation you need to accomplish your tasks, all of this will point towards this central focal point, which is your self-actualization, which is you becoming the greatest and best, most successful version of yourself. And we want to discover what that is, because if we know what that is, and if we are, very importantly, sufficiently enticed by it, then we'll be drawn toward it. It'll be so attractive that it will make us want to go for it. And there will be this clear sense that it will be worth any effort that we put toward it. And also, very importantly, there will be a great sense of necessity around it, where it's like, I feel like it's necessary to get to this point of actualization. Like, not being at this place is no good for me, so I absolutely have to get there. And so if we have this sense of have to, then that will guide us, and it will energize us, and it will keep us on point until we reach. But then, as we'll discover as well, if we dial up this sense of have to too much to the point where we feel too intensely that we have to get to this point of actualization, then it starts to be a counterproductive thing, because we become so off-center and so stressed and so unwell and so top-heavy in our endeavors that we start to shoot ourselves in the foot. We start to sabotage ourselves, and we start acting in ways that are unsustainable. And, for example, like, in extreme cases, we start taking like uppers and Adderall and cocaine and, things so that we can work more. And then whereas we get short-term results with, these sorts of things, ultimately they fail in the long term. And so what we want to do, the point of this conversation, is to set you up so that you have a really clean and clear sense of necessity, so that where you're going is absolutely necessary to go there. Like, you feel really strongly a great sense of purpose to get to that point of actualization, while paradoxically at the same time being totally happy and content with where you're at right now, such that you're not in too much of a hurry. And so through mastering this paradox, we find this place that I sometimes call sustainable high-level productivity. But viewing it from this motivation point of view, it's like, okay, like this is how to have really clean, solar-powered, wind-powered type motivation. So that's what we're going to do, and that's what I'm going to share with you now. So here is a key distinction to make, is that when we talk about actualization, and like this just took me so long to finally figure it out, there's not one, there's two. There's two types of actualization. There is what we can call absolute actualization, and there's what we can call relative style actualization. So actualization from an absolute point of view or a relative point of view. So the absolute point of view is what we would refer to when we're talking about awakening, spiritual awakening, when we talk about enlightenment. So awakening in an absolute sense is when we realize truths such as getting all the money in the world won't make us happy. Attaining all the success or getting certain trophies or gold medals or approval won't make us happy. When we realize that there's nothing that we can get out in the world that will make us fulfilled, or will make us feel like we're at home, or make us feel at peace with ourselves. This applies also to people loving us, having a good relationship, or having tons of amazing sexual partners, or having a big house, or having an amazing online presence, having a whole bunch of crypto. There's nothing that you can have or attain. There's no conditions out in the world that it can result in you feeling okay about yourself, because you feeling okay about yourself just exists in a different realm than in the realm of the physical universe. These two things don't touch. They have no, they're not connected to each other in that way. And so when we realize this, when we realize that fulfillment and peace and deep wellness and homecoming, like this sort of this sense of like finally feeling okay that we're all looking for internally, when we realize that it's not something that we can get out in the world, but we can only find internally, then that's how you get people who become hippies. Like, that's how you get people who renounce culture and stop trying to climb the corporate ladder and start trying to live out in their van, or become really hardcore minimalists. They become pacifists. They become interested in psychedelics and and the internal landscapes and spirituality and these kinds of things. These are people who go off and join communes, and for very good reason, because you can live a very simple life. When you become self-actualized from an absolute point of view, so when you achieve that element of self-actualization, the peace that you get from it is so unspeakably profound that it just becomes clear that the circumstances don't matter. And you can be in basically any situation or circumstances with any amount of wealth, and as long as you have yourself, and as long as you have your breath, and as long as you have the sky and the air, your fulfillment is complete, and the purpose of your life is fulfilled. and there's nothing out there to want or desire or to feel like you're lacking. And that's it's a really, really powerful and wonderful thing. And you can die with a smile on your face because you had discovered this in yourself. And not only that, but just as is the case with the other form of self-actualization that I'll get into next, it's not a one and done. Adyashanti was talking about this recently, that there's no one finish line that you pass. And it's really quite a relief that there isn't, because if there's no one finish line that you can pass, then what that means is you just go into deeper and deeper realms of peace and wellness, and of spiritual understanding, and of spiritual intuition, and connectedness and unity with all things and all that is. And the feeling of safety that comes with it, and the feeling of awe and wonder that comes with it, having a bottomless element to it, it's way more than you could ever need. You can just explore it infinitely and discover its nuances over time. And that's why self-actualization from an absolute point of view is so attractive. I'd like to also mention this at this juncture, that people in general tend to be split in these two ways, where a person will have a penchant either for relative actualization or for absolute actualization, and will mistakenly think that actualization in one area is more important than the other, so much so that if you become completely actualized in one realm, that it will actually somehow take care of the other realm. And this, we discover, is not true. And so it's, of course, particularly obvious the way I describe absolute actualization, where, that it's, you can't get it in the other path. And you'll see what I mean when I get into the other one, but vice versa is the case. So I'll explain that a little bit later, once I detail this other side. I call it absolute actualization because absolute refers to the conditionless element of it. So we become independent. Our wellness becomes independent of conditions. When we need conditions to be put in place, such as money or fame or whatever else, what we're saying is we have a relative level of wellness, where it's like, okay, like I'm well once X, Y, and Z conditions are met. So in other words, it's like if I have $1 million, then I'm well. If I have only $1, then I'm not well. And so we can call that relative wellness, which also is completely valid, but it's just not to be misconstrued with absolute wellness, which is just independent of any measurements, any numbers, any qualifications, any sense of earning or deserving or working. It doesn't come or go. So it's absolute in that case, thus the term absolute. So then, okay, that leaves us with becoming actualized on the relative level. So that means the process of becoming a success in the world of conditions. And so that could refer to so many things. It could refer to, as I listed before, having a great relationship, becoming physically healthy, having a business, having money, attaining high levels of status or achievement in certain fields, such as an academic field or a business field or a scientific field, or becoming a well-renowned artist or creator. So to become relatively actualized means to become a unique individual through your accomplishments, through what you grow and develop in your life, and standing out in a sense, which is different from absolute actualization, which is much more about merging and unity. Relative actualization is becoming unique and individuated, and having there be nobody in the world quite like you. And so, just as we discovered that no level of relative actualization will bring you absolute actualization, so is the case also that becoming actualized in an absolute way, so becoming God conscious, developing an awareness of yourself outside of a self and so forth, that's not necessarily going to make you money, and it's not going to get you a house. And so That may sound obvious to some of you, but it wasn't obvious to me. It's actually kind of funny and somewhat embarrassing, where I took to the spiritual path in around 2008 or 9. 2008 or 9. It was The Power of Now. I read it, and it woke me up to a whole new realm. I was so into it. Same with Wayne Dyer's The Power of Intention. And these are both people who they more or less miraculously became rich when people just saw how conscious they were, and people just kept throwing money at them and kept like asking them to teach. Eckhart Tolle in particular, his whole story was that he became self-actualized very suddenly, very profoundly, very spontaneously, overnight. Overnight, he just woke up, which is incredibly unusual. And he wasn't trying toward it. He wasn't trying to do anything. He just like woke up on his own. And he had no idea what had happened to him. It took him years to figure out what it was. It wasn't until he started going to spiritual retreats where people described what they were trying to get to. And Eckhart Tolle was like, oh, that's my experience you're describing. And that's when he realized what it was. He had spent 2 years on a bench, 2 years on a park bench. And then eventually people just asked him to teach them, and they started paying him. And then he developed his thing, his practice, and eventually he wrote his book, and he became a millionaire, I assume. And so anyways, that's what I was banking on. That was my whole technique towards actualization in the relative level. I was like, oh, I'm just going to become so enlightened and so spiritually awake that I make money. And so that's just as ridiculous as the opposite, being like trying to attain all this money so that you can become actualized in that way. So as you can see now, a main message that I want to really introduce here is that these are two realms that are separate. Like they do inform each other in ways that we can maybe get into later, but one doesn't cause the other. It's like you get path A, you get result A, you follow path B and get result B. And in order to become completely actualized, which would be to have both of these two paths online, we need to realize this. We need to know that going in, because they're different. What's also good to know about this, so now we can get into the motivation piece, is that if we do not become actualized in an absolute sense, so if we don't discover that eternal unconditioned wellness in ourselves, and if we really believe that that unconditioned wellness can be discovered through success, then we will never feel at home within ourselves, and we will never feel comfortable within ourselves. And everything that we do towards creating success, whatever that looks like in our lives, it will always come with a sense of heaviness and urgency, insecurity. Like we'll always feel a little insecure and anxious and jittery, and insecure. And there was another one too as well. Okay, it'll come back to me later. But it'll just like the result will never really be sustainable, and will never there will always be this sense. Oh, that's what it was. Obligation. Everything will have a sense of obligation. It's like I have to. Like you're pushing yourself to do to create success in your life. Even though you would rather not, even though you have to kind of motivate yourself to do it all the time. I made a video a little while ago called How to Release Obligation. I forget the exact name of it, but if you look in my channel and keyword search obligation, and you see like a photo of like an open door, that's the one. And that is it's one of my best videos. It's a powerful teaching on how to release obligation psychology. So I'll go a little bit deeper into the sense of obligation. But suffice to say here that as long as you believe that you need success in order to be well, everything that you do will always have this sense of obligation. And with it will always be this sense of hope and disappointment. It's like you're starting something new, you're on this new track, it's a new year, New Year's resolutions. Oh, we're gonna get there, we're gonna get there, we're gonna get there, and it's all full of hope, and then we don't, and then it's like disappointment and failure, and maybe I won't, maybe I never will. But we're always toggling back and forth between feeling like we're close to the thing, or we're far away from the thing, but never arriving at the thing, which is something interesting to see. But here's the other half of it. And this is where a ton of people get stuck. And I believe you, if you're watching this, if you're attracted to this type of material, I actually believe you are more prone to this mistake than you are to the other one. I believe a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about conditioned wellness and not finding happiness and fulfillment through success and getting money, I actually think you know that already. I think you have a really good understanding of that. But this other one is a little bit tricky, and I find I have to communicate this very often. Since we're aware that no level of success can bring us happiness, we're prone to think that success doesn't matter. But what happens though is that, say if we decide that we want to lose weight, or clean up, our diet a little bit, if we're eating too much junk food or drinking bad sugary drinks, we want to stop smoking, or we just want, we just don't have enough money, we're barely subsisting, and we just want we don't want unfathomable amounts of money, but we just want enough that we can take care of all of our needs and take care of our family or whatever. Reasonable stuff. What will happen is, it doesn't matter what kind of change it is, it will require effort and it will become difficult. And the reason for that is because we have to change our habits. We have old habits that led us to where we are now. And if we want a different reality, we need different habits, and usually multiple different habits. We have to change a whole bunch of them. So we need to get to sleep on time. If we're not doing that, we need to sleep better. Maybe we need to clean up some of our relationships, maybe heal some wounds or whatever. Maybe we need to go to therapy and do some of our inner healing as well. So we know we need to set up a whole bunch of habits and systems, and we need to go through a whole bunch of work in order to create these results. And then this is the trickiest part, because what happens is, once we start doing it, we'll start with the enthusiasm, and then the energy dies, and then we get into the desert where we're out in the unknown, we're in the unfamiliar, and we don't even have the motivation anymore. And then suddenly doubt creeps in. Is this such a good idea? And then the doubt and the part of us that feels uncomfortable out in the unknown, it will use the logic of absolute actualization to justify you dropping your goal. So I'm going to say that one more time. When you're out in the desert and you've run out of energy, even though you've committed to going for a jog every day, and now it's week 3 and you just don't want to go for a jog and it's cold outside, the part of you that does not want to change, the part of you, the primate part of you that just wants to stay the same and is comfortable with everything as it is, it will say losing weight or jogging, having a jogging habit, or doing aerobics every day doesn't matter. It'll say it doesn't matter because either way you're a child of God. Either way you're the divine. Either way, despite the conditions, you have access to unconditional wellness. So why would it matter if you clean up your diet or stop smoking? You may as well just find God in cigarettes, you might say, or may as well deeply find peace while you get fat, or run into bad health conditions. And so that can be really tricky, because if everything I said earlier about unconditioned wellness is true, then how do we properly justify and find enough necessity in setting up habits that will make us strong, rich, successful, powerful, influential? And how can we stay motivated by these things? And this is the trap that I kept falling in. This is what makes me so happy to share this with you, because it just took me so long, and I can just save you so much heartache by figuring this out. It's by sharing this with you, because you might think that it doesn't matter becoming actualized on the relative level if you become actualized on the absolute level. And so I'm tempted on one hand to just simply tell you point blank that it does matter, and that would be easy. But It's a lot better if you tell that to yourself. It's more of a decision, in other words, that you make, that it does matter. It does matter if you become successful or not, if you become fit or not, rich or not. It's one thing to be a homeless, hippie, vagabond person, driving in your van across the coast, and you're 23 and you sleep out in the cold and your car breaks down in the middle of nowhere and you have to sleep under a rock for 3 days before somebody discovers you. Like, all that's fun, when you're 23. But when you're 63, it's not good. And you don't have any, just because you're enlightened, it doesn't mean that you'll have a retirement fund, that you'll have savings to take care of yourself. If you're actualized and enlightened, but you're severely overweight and you don't take the proper steps to lose weight, to take care of your heart, to take care of your blood, and take care of your organs, then it will make your life shorter than it has to be. And it won't be nice. And you could still say from this logic, like, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because, nothing matters. It's all meaningless. Who cares? Just live the way you want. But I'm telling you that your subjective experience of your life matters. If nothing else, think about all the trouble that you went through to become an adult. Assuming you are one now, which you probably are. All the resources that went into it. And here you are. Another thing is that it's wise to consider your life as a gift. Some of us, if we're in a bad place, we're not used to thinking of life that way. We're more used to thinking of life as a heaviness, as a burden, as an obligation. But the truth is that it's much closer to the truth. It's much more truthful to view life as a gift. I guess, if I were to really say it, life is a gift. That's the truth. And if you don't see life as a gift, then this is false. How do I know this? Well, one way of evaluating if something is true or not is whether or not it's life empowering. Does this concept enhance growth? Does this concept make way for further growth and development of the thing in question? If so, then it's true. And not just growth, like you can get into a philosophy thing about it, and I don't really want to. So don't take this as gospel. Just take it more as a kind of a tool, just a perspective. Every perspective, by the way, can be taken to its excess and becomes no longer useful. There's no one perspective that is completely useful all the time forever. There's just a bunch of perspectives, and some are better than others, some are more useful than others. But there's no one perspective that is the perspective, that is the boat that will carry you across all channels and will also be a car that takes you across all roads. And so part of this on a more meta level is developing the wherewithal to discern between points of view. And so therefore, let me offer this point of view to you, that if it's life affirming, if it makes way mentally for you to grow and develop and to become more nuanced as a person, then that's true. And thus, therefore, not to get too sidetracked, therefore it's true that life is a gift, to view it that way. I wanted to make this whole video on perspectives, and I think I still will, about how to be open-minded in such a way that you are open to everything, radically open to everything, and yet not so open that you can get taken advantage of, or such that you lose your intelligence in the process. So I've been talking about that with some of my friends, some of my philosopher friends, so I could really articulate that. So I'll give that to you one day. It's going to be a fun talk to give. So I think we can tie all this down now. So absolute actualization, relative actualization, both are important. And in order to find motivation, because motivation was the promise at the very beginning of this, and so now I can deliver on it with all this said, The motivation comes from your decision about how important actualization is. And if you can make a decision right now, then I can guide you on a more granular level how to use it. But we have to start here. It's necessary. If you want all the motivation, we need to decide that it is worth it to put the effort in to get these results. Because at the end of the day, how could we, like when we view it from this perspective, is it possible for you to have motivation if you don't actually really believe it matters? You and I and all humans will only do what we believe is necessary to do if it's difficult. So if it's difficult and we don't want to do it, we will do it if it's necessary. If it's necessary, only if it's necessary. If it's not necessary, we won't do it. So what you and I are deciding right now is that becoming actualized on a relative level is necessary. Would you be willing to decide that right now? Because no matter what, the clock is going to run. And you're going to get old and die. No matter what. No matter what. And you have latent gifts and messaging in you and individual creativity to be expressed in you and uniqueness to be offered to the world that would benefit from the world, that the world desires, that the world wants to see and is waiting to receive from you and loves to receive it from you. Like, so, like no pressure, but it would be amazing if you became self-actualized on a relative level. It would help everybody. It would help the species. It would be you contributing a new note to the symphony of the universe. You would be an example for everybody around you so that they can also get their shit together. So that you can put your finger on the scale towards humanity taking care of itself and becoming enlightened. This is something you can do. It would be absolutely, absolutely appreciated. So what do you think? Is this necessary? Do you feel like you'd be willing to do whatever it takes to do this? Make up your mind. Really make up your mind. No judgment here. I'm not telling you what to choose, but I am somewhat telling you to choose. Because if you don't choose, then you'll just keep going on, you'll just stay on the fence. You're just back and forth forever. You'll do things with all this new vigor and invigoration until it becomes hard. After which you'll decide it's not worth it and give up. And then once enough time passes, you'll decide that it is worth it and start again until it becomes way too difficult. And then you'll decide it's not worth it, right? Back and forth. So what we're doing is we're deciding, what is it? What is it? Is it worth it or not? Get to the bottom of it. If you get to the bottom of it now, it's not at all going to make this easy. The process of doing it, of actualizing it, of doing the push-ups, going for the run, waking up early, losing weight. None of that is easy, and none of it will make it easy. And none of what we're discussing here will do it for you so that you don't have to do it. All we're doing is deciding if it's necessary and thus rendering it necessary, because we will do whatever's necessary, if it is necessary. I tried writing about this once on Reddit, and somebody accused me of just playing a silly, stupid little word game. And I really sympathized, right? Because as we're talking about it, you can kind of see in one sense, it kind of feels like a stupid little word game. And yet this is it. This is the absolute foundation of it. Making something necessary. It's not like, there's nothing about this that's necessary, like somebody can tell us that it's necessary. I can't tell you that it's necessary. I don't have any more authority than you do. So this is you retaining your own authority to decide that something's necessary, and then it becomes so because you say so. So let's assume you're down with it then. Let's assume that your actualization on a relative level is necessary. So good. Then we go down the stack. It's like, okay, what are we doing? And maybe you have a whole bunch of dreams. Maybe you're like me, where you have a whole bunch of interests. You want to do this, this, and that. It's like, okay, well then start with one thing. You can't do it all at once. Do not try to do it all at once. It's like jumping onto a carousel that's spinning way too fast for you to spin on. Start with one. What are you doing? Let's just say you're 19 and you want to be a musician and an entrepreneur and a dentist. Pick one. It doesn't matter which one. It doesn't matter. If there's no one option that really stands out to you as the best one, then what that means is that it doesn't matter which one you choose, that the choice is arbitrary. What matters is that you do choose. That is the priority. And oftentimes, if you choose one thing and follow it through to completion, the success that comes from it, both in terms of experience and knowledge and everything, the growth that you attained, as well as any financial trappings that you got from it, that will allow you more easily to do the second one and more easily do the third one. So there's time for all of it, but choose one. And then it's like, okay, well then maybe you need to get your habits in order. So what are we going to start with? So don't do all don't change all your habits at once. Change 2 habits maximum. What are you doing tomorrow? Are you getting to bed on time? Is your sleep schedule out of whack? All right, when do you need to go to bed? What time? What are you going to put in place so that you remember to go to bed in time? And then what are you going to say to yourself when a voicing comes up inside and says, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Who cares? I can get away with it. I'll do this tomorrow. Decide ahead of time how you're going to deal with that voice. Notice any part of you that kicks up a fuss at this juncture, right? Because there's a part of us, and just pay really close attention to it. There's a part of us that doesn't want to. There's a part of us that will always go like, nah, like it always kicks up a fuss like a little child. Because it is like the inner child, the inner primate that doesn't want to do this, doesn't like it. It sounds like work. It sounds like it's hard. It sounds like failure. It sounds like risk of embarrassment. It sounds like risking finding out that I'm not as strong or as disciplined as I thought I was. But if it's your desire to become actualized on the relative level, if you found that it's necessary, and this is the habit, you've decided this is the first thing that you're going to do to move in that direction, then that's it. You got to get to bed on time. If you don't get to bed on time, how can you ask anything else of yourself? How can you get to the second step if you can't complete the first step? You can do all of this while knowing that it's all ultimately meaningless. You can still keep that there. Everything that you learned from this realm of absolute actualization, you can take it with you. I have. I know that it doesn't really matter. I'm aware that all I'm doing is playing a video game, that life is just a game, that it doesn't matter if I die a millionaire, a billionaire, or a tenyonaire, which is a word I made up. Doesn't matter if I die fat or die thin. Doesn't matter if I die successful or a failure. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's no body that's going to come and judge me or something. It's all up to me. This life is my gift. This time is my gift. It's like being gifted $1 million. Do whatever you want, whenever you want. But for me, I'm interested in the actualization of my person. I'm interested in seeing how intelligent I can become, how enlightened I can become, how successful I can become, how much I can serve, how much benefit I can offer humanity. I'm interested in all this. I want to see. And so I'm going for it. And it's enthralling, and it's interesting, and it's exciting. So that's it. I hope this was helpful. Pursue both paths. Prioritize both paths. One will lead you to freedom from suffering. One will lead you to freedom of mobility. Both combined make life, the tapestry of your life, incredibly rich. Incredibly rich. Because in the absolute path, you develop all this wherewithal to appreciate all this gratitude. You start to overflow with gratitude. And the gratitude is not just for like the amazing, expensive stuff. The gratitude is for everything. It's just gratitude, period. So you can't even turn it off at a certain point. I'm serving this coaching group that I reference every once in a while. Like, I'm doing it all for free, and I'm just so grateful they show up. I'm just grateful I can serve. I'm grateful to serve. I'm grateful to be useful. So that's it. Let me know if I did a good job of explaining how to get motivated, of making this distinction. If this was interesting, if it was helpful, please like this video. If you want to get a coaching session, you can get it for $5. There's a link for that below. And that is all. Thank you.